The Saturday afternoon shootout is on the air. Warning, although the information expressed on the show has been researched by our staff, it may not be correct. All opinions made by the hosts or their guests are theirs alone and should not be considered legal advice. Be sure to consult an attorney before attempting anything you hear on the show. Just because we say it on the internet doesn't mean it will stand up in court. Now, here are your hosts. Hey, welcome to another episode of Saturday Afternoon Shootout.
Hello.
Right here on Flint Talk Radio. We're broadcasting from the 15th floor of the Wilson Building in the heart of Vehicle City, downtown Flint, murder capital of the country. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. I'm Brian.
I'm Nate.
And we have a guest today.
We do. Kaylee Anna. She came to help us a little bit. We've talked several times about gun safety in the home and children shooting and what age to start, and obviously when you feel your child's ready. Quite a while ago, we used the Eddie Eagle program.
Yep.
Right? So
good program.
Yeah, and it's one of the few things that the NRA does that I agree completely with.
Yeah, it's good.
It's very good. So Kaylee was here. She just wanted to tell us what she would do if she was playing on the playground and came across a firearm, found a gun on the ground.
Stop, don't touch, leave the area, and tell an adult.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Have her say that again.
Go ahead.
Stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult.
Right. Now, did you want to sing and dance it like they do? Stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult. Stop.
Go ahead, dance.
Don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult.
Do you get to shoot any guns at all?
Nope.
What about play guns? No airsoft guns?
She
yet?
does, just not by herself.
No, I mean with an adult.
We do with an adult, yes, for sure.
So you learn safe gun handling, point it in a safe direction.
Yep.
Except when you want to shoot Nate, you can.
We sometimes do that with the Nerf guns.
Yeah,
the Nerf guns.
Never listen to Brian, ever.
No,
This
really.
was supposed to be a good educational segment, and Brian ruined it like he does everything else.
You know, which reminds me, hang on a second. When we were kids, one of the things that my mom always did is she always bought, it was kind of a tradition up until like last year even, she would buy us 3 little like Nerf guns or little, toy guns that shot projectiles, and she'd get 3, one for my brother, one for me, and one for my dad. And as soon as we all opened them up, she'd give them to, all 3 of us.
Yep.
We had a war.
Yeah.
And so it was my brother and I against my dad. And so we're running all through the house, and we're shooting at each other. It was fun. And I remember one time I snuck up on my dad, and he was like in the living room, crouched down. He's looking around. And I got down on my hands and knees really low, and I went, "Hold it!" And he turned around, and he shot, but he thought I was standing up. So he shot high, and I went, "Pow, pow!" He thought that was really clever.
Did he?
Yeah, we stopped playing after that.
I
No,
bet.
and I kid, but my mom was still doing that until we were in our 20s. It was great. It was
fun. Yeah, we got some. She wears her shooting
I mean,
glasses.
you shouldn't shoot people, but, those were back in the 70s and 60s and stuff when it was okay to shoot
It's
people.
a toy. They're different. I mean, you have to make it
A
very
distinction,
clear
yes.
that is not, it's not a gun. I mean, really, it's
no.
something completely different, and it's
Right.
for fun. Well, Kaylee, thank you.
Thank you very much. You did a great job.
She wanted to be famous.
We
and
put
now
we put a gun out there on the floor. We'll
she's
see if she'll
still-
do it.
Oh, she left the area.
Yeah, she did.
Actually,
She's getting in the car.
I just heard the car start.
She's driving away. Darn it. We can do that next week. We'll talk about not leaving the keys in the car for
we
your
should have done that first.
kids to drive away
We're doing
with.
things backwards a little bit here.
Well, we want to remind you, this is a call-in show. If you're listening out there live, you can call at 810. If you're dead and listening, that's a different issue. 810-208-1854.
Please, if you are not live right now, call us. Because
That
would be amazing.
We would be on the internet. We'd get 1 million views.
We would switch over probably to like a supernatural, station or something.
yeah.
But anything for fame.
We have gift cards that were donated by a great Second Amendment supporter
who is formerly of Michigan, is now moved out of the state into a freer state, and he's happy about that. Although, I think his heart is still here in Michigan, and he likes the show. So we donated a bunch of gift cards. So we've got gift cards to Starbucks coffee. I think we got some to Walmart, things like that, anywhere from $10 to $25. If you call in, ask a great question, or make a great comment, if you want, you hang on the air. Our producer will get your address, and we'll send the card out to you.
We've given away a few already, so
yes.
Want to jump in there and give us some calls? And
yes, we have. We have a lot to talk about. We've got lots of little snippets that we want to discuss, but one of the things that, as a hunter, fascinated me, they've come out, and it's the tracking point rifle. Have you heard about that rifle?
Yeah, I did it. It's pretty awesome.
It can shoot at 1,000 yards. They even had some demonstration at 1,100, 1,200 yards with pinpoint accuracy. 500-yard shots are a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. A novice hunter can take the gun and hit a target the size of a paper plate, at 1,000 yards. And it's fascinating. It's not cheap. It's about $22,000. I guess it's available now. It's out. They said on the shelves. I bet it's not on a shelf, but
if it's on a shelf,
you can order it. And it uses modern technology. It's got like 3 scopes on top of each other, like a tripod, and it's got a computer. And what it essentially does is it paints the target with a laser beam, and it locks it in on whatever you want to hit.
Yeah.
And then it has the scope and a crosshair, and then you sort of zoom in on that red dot, and the gun will not fire until that crosshair and that red dot intersect. And so it's sort of semi-automatic. I mean, you have to engage it, but it pulls the trigger the minute that crosshair goes over that red dot. And it takes in, well, let's see what it says. It looks like a typical hunting rifle, except for the funny big scope on top. It's a bolt-action rifle, and it takes into account barometric pressure, temperature, curvature of the earth, the Coriolis effect of the spinning earth, and all these other variables it takes in. And they were hitting like impalas, small African game animals, at 1,000 yards. Yeah, what?
I was going to say, my favorite car that I've ever owned was an Impala.
I don't know that they shot an Impala, but they shot an Impala.
Oh, okay. I see the difference.
They were shooting wildebeest.
It was white. It had like 230,000 miles on it when I got rid of it.
So it.
It's nuts.
Yeah, you said though it wasn't real reliable with the starting.
No, that's why I got rid of it. But after 230,000 miles,
what do you expect?
I mean, come on.
Yeah, and it didn't cost $22,000, did it?
No,
it might have.
No, not at all.
Anyways,
I actually got a great deal on it.
So immediately this brings up military applications with sniper. I mean, I think it's limited because, the target has to be holding fairly still.
Fairly stationary, and you have to have some time to paint it and then,
have the thing do its calculations and all that. But the video I saw, it was pretty impressive. The question comes up, what are the ethics of hunting? Is this hunting if, you can hit an animal at 1,000 yards without having any skill? You don't have to stalk the animal. I mean, you can shoot it. But so that's a legitimate question. But I look at this. I mean, I can imagine the first hunters that hunted with muzzle loaders, in the 1860s, and they went to a cartridge round that could shoot like a Sharps rifle or whatever that could shoot 7 rounds one after the other. Well, that's not hunting.
I think a much more recent example.
I wasn't done. I was going to go through the history of firearms.
Oh, go ahead. That'll be interesting for everybody.
So the same argument took place, and then when they added telescopic sights, at some point they're like, well, that's not hunting. And I mean, the technology is always going to change, and in the end, what you're doing is you're harvesting an animal, hopefully for food. Go ahead, Nate. You're giving me the.
No, there's something making faces at us.
Don't look at
what I was
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain and the voices you hear talking of tyranny,
because it does look like tyranny to me.
Or tyranny.
Okay. No, I was going to say a more recent example was the opening up of crossbows for hunting. by the general population.
Right, and if people still want to, people still hunt with muzzle loaders,
Oh, yeah.
and that's fine. People still hunt with longbows, wooden shafts,
Yep.
and stone arrowheads. So, that's still out there.
You still can.
You can still do that, but if you want to go, and harvest game, and take some nice trophies. Now, that's the other thing I looked at was the trophy hunting aspect and how that affects the genetics of the species. For instance, if I'm on one mountain and I can shoot across a valley onto another mountain range, and I can take, a world record doll or stone sheep or something that's been surviving there for 8 years and has been reproducing for 8 years and passing on those magnificent genes for great trophy doll sheep, and he's escaped hunters because he's wily and it's hard to get at. Now people are going to be able to harvest that animal, take them out of the gene pool. What does that do with world records and trophies and things like that? Those are more ethical things, but there's a biological aspect. The other thing is when game biologists regulate hunting seasons and bag limits, they take into account the success rate of hunters. So in other words, in Michigan, they might sell 1 million firearm licenses, and only about 10% of those will get filled, right? Because they know that it's not that easy to shoot a white-tailed deer, regardless of what the propaganda people tell you. So they know how many deer are going to be taken. They know approximately how many deer they are, so they manage that. Well, now if you introduce a technology like this, where maybe they fill 50%, are they going to then say, all right, we're only going to sell 500,000 licenses or 200,000?
I think they would have to, right?
I don't know.
It's like only allowing 3 shells in your shotgun to hunt ducks,
right?
Same thing. And
so those are.
It's actually not the same thing because that is a restriction on firearms as opposed to hunting, which is a separate issue. But it comes down to the same basic principle. If game conservation is the goal.
And I think it's...
Then you'll have to do
that. It's game conservation and recreation. Those are the two things they're balancing.
Yeah.
And, to a certain extent, supplying a supplemental food source. There are people that kind of count on that deer or 2 or 3 to fill up their freezers.
Right. They might not be buying a $20,000 firearm.
But, that's the thing. Not everybody's going to have that. But... like everything, the price will come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And eventually, in 50 years, you might be able to pay $2,000 for that rifle and be able to shoot very well.
Personally, I don't see a problem with it. If you want to buy this $20,000 machine and hunt with it, I don't really see much of a problem with it. I wouldn't do it because, kind of what you alluded to, is that hunting.
Right.
What's the fun, really? I would love to shoot it. Holy cow, that would be awesome.
It'd be a blast.
That would be awesome. I've never even taken a 1,000-yard shot, let alone hit a target at 1,000 yards, right? So, I would love
I can't see 1,000 yards.
When you buy yours, since they're out now on the shelves,
I'll let you use it.
Let me try it.
I've ordered 2. So
how far do you live from me?
Not that far.
Yeah.
1,000 yards.
Yeah, about 1,000
yards.
Just wondering.
Yeah, you might be careful when you're out barbecuing.
Yeah. Okay.
There is some curvature of the earth there, but it takes that all into consideration.
Yeah, it does.
You might just I'll tell you what you do. When you're outside, just keep moving.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Serpentine.
When I see a red dot painted on my shirt.
Move again. Keep moving because I have to make sure that crosses or the gun won't go off.
Yeah.
It won't take the shot.
I am interested in that technology of how it sort of fires on its own. It seems like you could mess that up pretty easily and accidentally paint the ground, and then it's kind of weird. I haven't actually seen the gun and see how it actually operates.
You have to engage it. So I think it just doesn't if you're painting the ground and the crosshair happens to hit that, it fires.
Sure, you have to turn it on.
That's bad.
You have to turn a safety off on
right. There's a safety.
Firearm,
then you pull the trigger. You engage some device, and then you point it and then it fires. I'm sure you can disengage it if the target moves or your mother-in-law gets in the way.
You painted the wrong thing.
Or gets out of the way. Either one.
Gets in the way. If my mother-in-law got in the way, is the way that I would go with that.
Now I'm confused. So that's kind of an interesting technology. I think it has its place. I mean, there are people that go to these, canned hunting areas where they're in a contained area. It might be a large area that has game animals in there. They pay a big fee and they can shoot a nice deer. Or
same argument's been made with that.
Right.
Is that hunting?
Is
You're
that
guaranteed
hunting?
to get a shot. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. We had May issue. If we have shell issue concealed weapons, there's going to be blood in the streets. And now it's if we allow open carry, there's going to be blood in the streets.
Right.
And then it's if we allow these assault, military style assault weapons, there's going to be blood in the streets. It's it's the same. It's the same questions that keep coming up. Some more legitimate than others. But you take it one technology at a time.
Yeah, and the article went on. It said, you can imagine the anti-gunners are having a hissy fit.
Oh,
My goodness, you'll be able to shoot the president. You'll be able to shoot terrorists. Will be able to use this. Assassins will use that. Well, yeah. I mean, there are assassins. We have them. They're called snipers. The military does shoot military targets from long range. However, the company says that they do. They decide on who they sell it to. They have the final decision. I guess it's not going to really be available. So they're going to do some screening. They're looking at the legitimacy of hunters and backgrounds. So it's and sports shooters. So it's a background check. In essence,
that won't last long.
Yeah,
a private company actually being responsible and handling who should buy their product or not.
Yeah, and for now, I think that's what they're going to do.
For now,
because it's new.
I don't.
But when the gun becomes $2,000, it's going to be the same thing. If you buy it from an FFL today, you go through a background check.
Yeah,
we have that in place already.
Sure.
So, I don't. I think that's the same argument you can have with any rifle. Any rifle can be used by bad people to do bad things.
The terrorists they show on my TV generally don't have the most modern of weapons. They usually have a nice AK-47
or a crock pot.
Or a crock pot. I mean, let's not demonize crock pots. You mean pressure cooker.
Oh, yeah,
those are very different things.
Aren't they the same?
Very insensitive of you.
They're the same, aren't they?
They're not the same.
I think they are.
I actually think Crock-Pot's a brand or something, isn't it?
Probably.
I don't know.
It's like saying Kleenex.
It was written on my Crock-Pot before it exploded, so I don't know.
And now your pressure cooker comes with a warning. Do not use as a bomb.
I was cooking ball bearings, and it just...
it went off.
It's nuts.
I think it's too soon. You shouldn't be making...
California
jokes on
they're
that.
Pretty terrible people.
They are. I hate all Californians, every one of them.
Especially the ones that listen to this show.
Yeah. Wait a minute. There goes our viewer, our listener, our viewer, whatever they do. Yeah, California. Lots of odious and restrictive gun laws, along with a lot of other laws. They have their problems, but now they've passed a law that says any semi-automatic handgun that can be sold into the state of California has to have the technology to micro-stamp, the make, the model, and the serial number of the gun onto every cartridge that is fired.
Yep.
So it's not marking the casing of the bullet. When you buy the bullets, it's the gun imprinting it onto the casing once it's fired.
Right.
Now, I don't know, I'm assuming it's like on the firing pin.
I would think.
That's hitting it into the primer and it's impressing. Or there's some other mechanism within the gun that somehow impresses into the casing some identifying mark. The problem is a lot of these gun manufacturers aren't going to do it because it's expensive. Yeah. And so what in effect, and they know this, what it does in effect is it doesn't allow anyone to sell semi-automatic handguns to people in California.
Right.
So it's a gun ban.
This was a weird situation.
Well, what's scary, real quick, what's scary is that, yeah, you can say, oh, it's well and good in California, I don't have to live there. But now other states are looking at it as the model. And they actually come out and say, we're doing it because now we want other states to do it. And so I imagine there's going to be other states that are going to do this as well.
I've said this before. That's what's scary about the New York gun laws, Colorado's gun laws. I mean, those types of states, generally that stuff propagates because you have rich billionaires like Bloomberg and
Right.
things pushing this stuff. And California, lots of celebrities with a lot of money in polling California.
All right.
This was an interesting thing. If I remember right, the inventor had the patent on this. It was some guy that invented this technology. And he had just released his patent rights so the state could... So gun manufacturers could implement this and the state could require it. Because, I mean, before that, he had the patent and you can't manufacture it if you don't have rights to the patent.
Right.
So it's absurd. It's going to, like you said, raise the price of manufacturing, which raises the price to the end user. And in reality, it'll just... people won't sell handguns into California.
And the idiocy of the whole thing, though, is it's not going to solve one single crime.
No, the criminals will still have their illegal guns.
It's not going to prevent a single crime.
Nope.
Because it's not very often that a criminal uses their own firearm to commit a crime with it. I mean, there are crimes of passion, where a husband owns a gun or a wife owns a gun and, shoots a spouse or something. But generally, those are solved anyways. You don't need the micro-stamping technology.
Right.
We have it. So the idea that it's going to be useful to law enforcement is a bogus argument. It's a false premise that it's going to do anything.
Absolutely.
All it does is, and they know it, all it does is it's going to make guns, semi-automatic handguns, very difficult to get in California, and that's all it's going to do.
And that's the only goal.
And I think that's the end goal.
That's the goal.
So it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It's an infringement. It's a ban. It's tyranny.
It is a ban.
It's just crap.
It's California. Coming to a state near you.
It might go on. And then it doesn't do anything for revolvers because they don't eject a casing when they're fired. So and you notice it didn't say it had to be on revolvers, just semi-autos. So, people and bad guys, they'll still have their revolvers.
I'm just imagining the make, model, serial number imprinted on a .22 casing.
Oh,
and how you're going to read that.
With a microscope.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, it is micro-stamping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's ridiculous. And that's probably why it's going to be difficult and expensive to
it's going to make, if people do comply with that and do shoot one of those guns and do the micro-stamping at a range or something like that, if I was that person, I'd have to pick up every one spent, casing because somebody else might be picking them up and putting them at a crime scene.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so ridiculous.
That's right.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like somebody can take off your fingerprint, and plant that somewhere, but they can certainly plant this and create a reasonable suspicion.
You haven't watched any sort of spy or action movies, have you?
No, I deal with
because
reality.
They cut fingers off all the time and use them to plant fingerprints. So come on.
It can be done. It's just more difficult.
Well, actually, the other thing is too. I mean, let's face it. It is not that hard to actually transplant fingerprints onto materials.
Yeah.
And
you can collect. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, I guess.
Especially since gun owners, especially in California, you have to be fingerprinted.
And you do the same thing with their DNA too.
CPL. So I mean, let's face it. It wouldn't be that hard for the law enforcement to put your fingerprints anywhere they want them to.
That's why registries are bad. I mean,
even the ACLU came out against the universal gun registration. ACLU, who was not a defender of the Second Amendment, came against that.
Yeah.
So we're going to drift into states gun things. So we've got a bunch of stuff from New York because a lot of stuff's happened recently, and some of it is maybe for the good. Cuomo. This is kind of old news. This was last week, I think. Cuomo, whatever his pronunciation is.
Cuomo.
He had a conference with some of the leading sheriffs in the state. The sheriffs have come out against his Safe Gun Act, saying they're not going to enforce it. It's unconstitutional. They've been very vocal about it, and they thought they were being asked to meet with him to discuss maybe some changes and stuff. But apparently what he did was told them to shut their mouths and stop talking. It's not your job to pontificate about the laws. Your job is to enforce the laws, and if you don't do it and you go against this, I'll remove you from office. Now, apparently there's a state in the state constitution in New York. I haven't researched it, so I don't know. There's something in their constitution that allows a governor to remove a sheriff for some reason. I don't know what those reasons are.
Probably if they disagree with what the governor believes.
So he basically scolded them, which wasn't very nice of him and just pisses the sheriffs off.
But
But then,
a good dictator will do that.
yeah, and remember, they've had gun rallies. Most people are against us. Even a lot of the police chiefs of cities in New York have spoken against it. Apparently, there's a county clerk in one of the counties in New York who is not upholding the law when he said last week he would refuse to release permit holders' information. The law allows permit holders to make their information exempt from state freedom of information law disclosures if they apply and meet certain criteria. He said, bullcrap, I'm going to not really, if someone asks for their information, I'm not going to release it. I don't think it's constitutional. So if more clerks come out, you got the sheriffs, more people. You also have this. I mean, this is all in line. Remember, we might not have talked about it 2 weeks ago because I'm not sure when it happened, but we had the first arrest under the SAFE Act where there was a guy in New York who was pulled over because his light over his license plate wasn't on. The guy had.
It's amazing how often that happens to people when they get pulled over for something different than that,
and
get charged with something other.
Or when you get out and you go back there and the light happens to be on, and the trooper says, "Oh, well, it was off. You must have a short.
You must have a short in there or something."
Yeah. Well, anyways, he was a valid, lawful gun owner, and he had a concealed pistol license from an upstate county, and disclosed to the officer that apparently he had a gun. The officer, of course, took the gun for officer safety, unloaded it, and oh no, he had 9 bullets instead of the lawful 7 that he was allowed. Was arrested under the felony, and taken in, took his gun, and he was the first person arrested for the violation of that law. Lawful, not a criminal, not doing anything wrong other than he had 2 extra bullets in his magazine.
But I mean, really, you don't need 10 rounds to kill a deer. I mean, right?
Ayn Rand predicted and said that, what the state will do is make criminals out of formerly, innocent, law-abiding people by creating so many laws that it's impossible not to break one. And so if they don't like you or they want to manipulate you, they arrest you under one of these laws. That's what's happening.
Why are the American people allowing these politicians to even breathe air anymore? I'm serious. We should be all over these people. They should not be breathing free air. They should be all in prison.
The tide is changing. I think more and more people are waking up. Even the left is realizing that, oops, maybe this Messiah, Obama, isn't as wonderful as we thought.
Well, but unfortunately, it took an attack on the free press to get the idiots that are part of the free press.
And they're bewildered because they're saying, "Come on, we've been carrying your water since the day one.
Yeah, how can you
Obama? How can you hate us?"
To Obama, as they stabbed him in the back.
We blinded ourselves. We cut our tongues out, so we couldn't say anything about you because we want you to succeed in your ends.
Now the media are questioning it, and the people are questioning it. They go, well, maybe there was something to Fast and Furious. Maybe there was something to Benghazi. Maybe there's something that all of these people have been saying for years. Maybe there's something to that.
And that's the real problem for the administration about this is that it's not just
one thing.
You attack the AP. It's well, we know now that you're not being truthful and transparent. What about all this other stuff? I just saw a tweet from Piers Morgan, of all people. Piers Morgan, the non-American on CNN.
Who criticizes America left and right.
Yeah, said his tweet was something like Benghazi, IRS, CAP. That really doesn't say much for the transparency, does it, Mr. President? From Piers Morgan.
Well, did you hear what Jay Leno said? He said the Fox News is changing their title, their motto from fair and balanced to "See, I told you so."
I like that. That's the thing. This is the sort of stuff that people like us and Fox News and talk radio have been saying for years. Right. This stuff is happening. This is dangerous. Yep. Take care of it now, or it's going to affect you. Yeah, sure, you have your shotgun today and your hunting rifle. Tomorrow, they will be coming for your hunting rifle after they get rid of everything I own and want.
Right.
You have to nip it in the bud, stay free, make sure everybody is equally free while you can until it's too late. And we're getting there.
Yep.
We're getting there.
The good news about this man, though, that was arrested, and I love this, is that the district attorney is not going to prosecute him. He's saying, I'm not going to do it. And
that's great.
He said,
That's great.
I don't think it's constitutional, and so right now, unless they go somewhere else to get them prosecuted, which I don't think they can, because I think the DA makes that choice.
I don't know New York law, but
this guy's not going to be prosecuted, at least by this DA, which, yay for him, because he's standing up. So now we've got, prosecutors, we've got county clerks, we've got sheriffs, we've got police chiefs. When all of these people say, hey, maybe there's something wrong with this law, maybe the general population in New York should say,
as long
it's
as...
like when 10 people say, hey, you're drunk, maybe you're drunk. You might not be, but maybe you are.
In my case, that's never the case. That's never true. As long as we are careful, and when it comes to election time, we don't once again buy all the bull crap from the left, anti-gun, anti-freedom people.
And the media.
The media, as they were.
Yeah.
And vote the wrong way and kick these people out of office that are actually doing something to defend the Constitution. That's the real danger, and that's how it's been working lately. The left is great at campaigning.
And this is how a republic is supposed to work. You're supposed to have the sheriffs, the police, the county prosecutors, judges, all of these people that have power locally to stand up against the larger government of the state, whether it's a county law, whether it's a state law, whether it's a federal law. You stand up and say enough is enough. We're not going to go forward and enforce these unconstitutional laws. And you can argue that it's not unconstitutional until the Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional. I don't buy that. An unconstitutional law is unconstitutional from the minute it's enacted until it's struck down. It's still unconstitutional. A duck is a duck.
Absolutely, and I've said this. I think Rand Paul got attacked for saying, I think it was Rand Paul, got attacked for saying that about Obamacare. After John, that turncoat, what's his name, Roberts, when he made his decision that Obamacare was in fact constitutional and the mandate was
a tax.
Rand Paul says, I don't care what the Supreme Court says, it's still unconstitutional, but now it's enforceable. There's a difference there. Wrong is wrong.
Absolutely.
Legal is legal.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, unfortunately, we're a law of judgments rather than, or a land of judgments rather than, a land of law.
Well, that's what, early on, an attorney told me this. I'll never forget it because he was absolutely right. I was talking to him about an injustice that was against against me, and I said, I just want justice, and he just laughed. He says, Brian, there is no justice. There's just decisions.
Yeah.
There's just court decisions. There's no justice. That's what the court system is. They decide things, and that's what it is. So you got to be careful about that. Staying with New York, they have a gun rally recently, and Melody Burns, I guess she's a New York talk show host, told supporters at the rally, do not comply. I just want to remind you, do not comply. There's risks to that. But you need the support of the sheriffs. And there was a sheriff there from Lewis County who said, I just want to tell you all, thank you. Don't give up. Keep using your voice. I'm not about to enforce this law. So when you have bad laws, we need people like this. And we need the general population to wise up. Support these people. Give them words of encouragement. Do your part to be civilly disobedient.
Do you know what's really encouraging about Obama? In one way, ironically, because of him, people who are never involved in the political process or constitutional rights or anything are now getting really heavily enmeshed in it. So thank you, Mr. Obama, for bringing back
Waking
people
up
online.
people.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if that's happening quickly enough, and I think we're seeing now that
as long as it's happening.
In the election last year, and 2000, well, maybe not back that far, but maybe just after the 2010 midterms.
Okay, I was going to say.
When the IRS started doing their really cool stuff and targeting people, I mean, that really puts a damper on energy and outreach and things like that. I mean, so, yeah, I think people are waking up, but the groups that are waking up are now being harassed by the same administration that's causing them to wake up.
Well, and you look at Benghazi with the recent presidential election. That was political, why they kind of kept that quiet and didn't want to...
Including Mitt Romney keeping it quiet, right?
Yeah, well...
let's face it,
at the time I had a different take on it, but
the Democrats had the goods on
getting
him.
more data, too, though.
The Democrats had the goods on him, so he knew when to shut up. That's the reason why he backed down. That's right. That's the reason why any of these people backed down. They got something greater on them,
It worked out really well for us, didn't it? And I understand your point. You're right, but I mean, come on. We need somebody to step up. Right. And it's not Ron Paul. I'm sorry, everybody.
Well, I like Ron for a lot of reasons.
I do too. So do I. So do I. Okay. Yes, it could be Rand Paul. There's a difference. There's a big difference.
Ted Cruz is encouraging, though, when he said he doesn't trust Republicans.
He said Rand. It's confusing. I don't know why he named his son Rand and Ron. And
I have a feeling I know why he named him Rand.
Oh, I do too. But I'm gonna just call him Buddy.
Buddy.
Yeah, my buddy. Fine. And that's for Rand, not Ron.
Ted Cruz, was he born here?
He was born in Canada, but he was born to I think his mother was American. So he's just like John. As much as I just like John McCain. People, when they were saying Obama, people's objection to Obama was racially motivated. They had the same objection to him, to McCain, because he was born in the Panama Canal Zone. His dad was serving down there, but he was born to American parents on American soil.
Right.
That base was American soil for all practical purposes.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there's any question that that's the case. Unlike,
there was some question with Ted Cruz. That's why I was asking. And I'm not.
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
I didn't know research.
He was born in Canada, but he had one American parent, so that makes him by just sanguineous. The principle of just sanguineous about blood. That makes him an American citizen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. He could actually have dual citizenship too. I don't know if he does, but
anyway, yes, I like him too. Go ahead.
Unlike in New Jersey, that is a really, really, really bad gun rights state. I mean, here was a guy.
New Jersey as opposed to New York? Is that?
I think it's worse.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I think in New York you can get concealed pistol licenses and stuff in northern part of the state. I mean, northern part of New York is very much like Michigan.
Like stop and frisk, yeah.
That's in New York City alone.
I know.
So yeah, there's parts, but I'm saying New Jersey, I don't think you can get a concealed pistol license very easily, and you can't have hollow points. And anyways, it's bad. Yeah. This guy's in Texas. He's moving to Maine.
Is he in Texas now, or is he in prison?
No, he's in jail. In prison for up to 3 to 5 years. Poor guy. He's taken all of his guns from Texas because he's a Texan, and he's transported.
He wasn't openly carrying them, though.
No, somewhere in his trunk, but apparently he had a gun case in the back seat. And it is lawful to transport firearms across the state by federal law, regardless of what the state may have, that as long as you're transporting it through and you're passing through the state and the guns are unloaded, in a case in your trunk, that is legal to do if you legally can possess them and they are lawfully owned. That's a lot of rules. Safe transport. You're right. But you really can't stop and spend the night or go into another state like that and spend a couple days with friends and then drive through. Then your guns are illegal. Well, what he did is he got tired because he'd been driving and he took a nap. As he was sleeping, cops saw his car. They pull up. They noticed a gun case there. The guy says, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to Maine, blah, blah, blah." "Oh, guess what? That's against the law here. We're arresting you." So he was convicted for 3 to 5 years to go in prison. Again, a lawful citizen not committing any crime against any person or property is imprisoned with a felony
completely
just because he had possession of a firearm. That's
an unloaded firearm.
Right. Everything
case.
By the law except that he stopped and take a nap because they would rather have you drive sleepy through New Jersey and maybe cause an accident than stop and rest and get refreshed so you drive safely. He's being punished. This is what his attorney had to say. I'm going to read it. He says, "All the officers saw were cases, gun cases. The court is essentially saying the plain view of gun case is a basis for a warrantless search. That means every law-abiding gun owner in New Jersey is subject to a warrantless search if they transport their firearm in a gun case. My recommendation to all gun owners is to transport all firearms in guitar cases. If he'd had a firearm ID card issued from New Jersey, which you can't get because he wasn't a resident, he wouldn't have been guilty of any offense. He didn't have one because he didn't live there. He was in in transit, and all the guns were lawfully his. So you have a situation where he is, in effect, turned into a criminal by New Jersey's gun laws. That's the idea. If we can't get rid of the guns, we'll get rid of the gun owners.
If you're driving through New Jersey with a firearm and in a case, legally, you're driving through, you don't stop to take a nap, but you keep driving tired, get in an accident, which causes you to stop on the side of the road and wait for a tow truck and the police.
Oops.
It's the same thing.
Or you're dead. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, then that.
Or you kill other people
New,
with that car.
New Jersey sounds like they tell your carcass and to put into prison if you're dead even.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Maybe, yeah. Well, he had guns, he's dead, but we're going to put him in prison.
Since you're in New Jersey, you can't leave them to any of your survivors. They will be destroyed or actually taken home by officers. But that's a whole nother story.
Here's the good news. The good news is New York, Colorado, Connecticut, and Maryland, all of those states have pro-gun organizations that have recently filed lawsuits against their states' new anti-gun laws.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a good thing. We'll see what happens. I think they're in federal courts because it's a constitutional issue. I think they have a good chance of winning certain parts of those laws anyways.
Is it going to do this guy any good that's sitting in jail?
This guy is not going to do him any good. I'm sure he's lost his career. He's lost a ton of money. He's going to spend up to 3 years anyways in prison. And he will now be a felon and will not be able to
own the firearms that he was lawfully transported.
Not only ruin his life, but his family's life.
Absolutely.
And I just hate stuff like that.
Could you imagine being the cop that busted these people? How can you take pride in sending a person to prison? I bet you they do, though. There's some sick people like that.
We're going to get to a story. And
they have to. I mean, what do they say when you ask them? They're just following
We're just following the law.
Following the
law.
SS officers.
Except for those sheriffs and those chief of police and the prosecuting attorneys. They're fighting back and not prosecuting.
You always have a choice.
You always do.
Always. Every law that is enforced, somebody made the choice to enforce that law. And usually it starts with the cop on the beat.
Right.
The first responder, if that's what you want to call them, they make the decision initially whether to enforce a law.
And they can say, I was just following the law, and that helps them sleep at night. But the fact remains, an unconstitutional, unjust law. I mean, it doesn't even have to be unconstitutional. There can be unjust laws that may be constitutional, but it doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they're moral. It doesn't mean they're just.
Like the tax laws, for example, those aren't just.
No,
they're legal, but they're not just.
Barely, some of them. But that's a whole other story. I mean, you hear it all the time. Police officers saying, "Hey, I just enforce the laws. It's up to a judge to decide whether." I made the right decision or the charges stick or whatnot. And I guess that's the point I keep trying to make, is that it's sad that we rely so much on decisions by judges that you don't know what you can do until a judge tells you that you did the right thing. And I mean, that's really no way to live, and that's not freedom. That definitely is not what the founding fathers had in mind when they came up with the system they came up with.
Right.
You know what? Another thing is, I think they should do, and this is a real quick one, but I think they should have an education of the American population for who might be prospective jurors. They should have a class in high school. They teach you in the law and many classes. Teach that stuff about what you can and cannot do as a juror, but they don't want you to be educated as a juror.
Absolutely,
they used to kind of do that. It was called civics class.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
Be a good citizen.
Tell you what.
They don't teach that much anymore.
Get a jury notice. Go there and show up with a book, about jury procedure or something like that. A textbook that you use. They'll throw you right out. We
talked about that show, and a guy was doing that. He was handing out pamphlets outside the courtroom to potential jurors, and the judge created an executive order that he couldn't do that within his courtroom. It was being challenged because it was a First Amendment issue, but he made it contempt of court. You can't pass out any information on jury nullification or jury duties and your rights.
Here in Michigan, a woman got prosecuted because for a drug conviction for her marijuana possession, and the jury was not being informed that she was actually in compliance with the Michigan medical marijuana law. Yeah. They didn't even want. The judge said that they're not even supposed to hear that they have a law allowing this.
Yeah, I mean that's
asinine.
Wrong. That's just wrong.
Having a law allowing something, it seems a little off to me anyway. But all right.
Department of Health and Human Services pushing for new executive actions that would violate doctor-patient confidentiality, requiring physicians and therapists to report to you, the government that is, if you have any anxiety, depression, or simply not able to manage your financial affairs. Well, who makes those decisions?
Doctors.
What is anxiety?
Doctors make those decisions.
Yeah. So I don't want to discuss that much. I'm just saying that they're trying to
federal agents
require doctors to do that. Now the doctor doesn't have any choice. He could be punished if he doesn't.
Well, you have to remember when you go to the doctor and they are following the rules in Obamacare and they're asking you if you own firearms and if you've ever wanted to beat your spouse and things like that, you don't have to answer.
Right, and that's the other thing. You don't have to answer.
They may tell you, they probably will not tell you that you don't have to answer, but you don't have to answer those questions.
Law enforcement.
And I would not answer those questions. The thing I'm worried about is children going to the doctor and being asked, so do mommy and daddy have guns? Do they ever argue?
Do they ever fight? Yeah.
When they fight,
does daddy drink?
Yeah.
Well, I get that one a lot. Of course, daddy drinks.
I mean, they should. When your 2-year-old's going in smelling like Birdman himself, you know. It's a legitimate.
If you had my wife and daughter, you know I drink. I love you guys.
They don't watch this.
No, they don't. They never have. They never will.
This is the first time Christy's watched.
I know it, and she's fallen asleep.
I was gonna mention earlier. It's usually a bad sign when your live studio audience is napping.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? I mean,
that's what we get for feeding them before the show.
Yeah.
They get a little sleepy after they eat.
And that whiskey.
Hey, real quick, I'm going to move on because there's a couple things I want to get to. Mike Judge, you know who Mike Judge is?
He's a judge.
No, he's not. He's the creator of Beavis and Butthead, Office Space, and King of the Hill. Great guy, very creative. He said that Michael Moore's 2002 documentary Bowling for Columbine had the opposite of its intended effect, convincing him that gun control was not a good idea. Mike Judge grew up with liberal parents thinking gun control was the way to go. He saw the movie and he said, he doesn't own guns, he said, and he would be for gun control if it's effective, but it's not. So he's opposed to gun control because it doesn't work.
Well, thank you, Michael Moore. Have you ever seen Super Size Me? It's a movie about McDonald's. The guy goes to every McDonald's
30
he
days.
can and buys something and has to eat everything for a month, 30 days,
well,
whatever
his whole diet was McDonald's.
But when he orders a meal, he has to eat it all. And if they ask him to supersize, he has to. This was part of why they don't have supersize anymore. But I watched that movie, heard all of the bad things that these quack
gained 30
doctors
pounds.
said. And they claimed his liver was failing and all this other garbage.
I don't
and blamed
believe
it
that.
on McDonald's. That's the part I don't get. But I literally watched that movie.
And you wanted to eat.
It made me hungry.
Yeah.
And when it got over, I drove to McDonald's and got a Big Mac.
Yeah.
And I am not joking about that. So I think that's another example of in fact, I'm getting hungry now.
I could use a burger.
Yeah, we could.
Let's go.
You ready? We should get an intern.
Unfortunately, Beretta, gun manufacturer in Maryland, will not be leaving Maryland, even though it said it would.
That's good.
They've been courted by Texas, West Virginia, even Illinois.
Yeah, come on here. We're not any different. But
come to Illinois. They said, we have 3 companies here and 300 people, and we make a lot of guns for the military, so we're going to stay here.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, no, it's... I understand because it's probably quite expensive to pack up and leave.
I imagine it is. But on the other hand, if you get a state that gives you, maybe a couple $1 million to set up in their state and tax incentives and gets a building, and I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. Don't make claims if you don't want to follow through.
Right, and nothing saying he couldn't have a plant in Texas and eventually slowly move. Anyways,
sure.
John asked about the cop. Does he feel good? How about this, John? Californians, Doug and Catherine Snodgrass are suing their son's high school for allowing an undercover police officer to set up their 17-year-old special needs students for a drug arrest. They say they were thrilled when their son, who has Asperger's syndrome and other disabilities, and had struggled to make friends, appeared to have instantly made a friend with a boy named Daniel. Unfortunately, Daniel was a undercover police officer, and using this special needs child, convinced him to sell him some marijuana that Daniel said that he desperately needed for whatever purpose or reason, medical or whatever he said, but he forced, he manipulated, he lied to, he befriended, he misrepresented himself to this poor kid, sold him a little pot, and they busted him. Now, does that cop feel good?
I bet you he's good because he's strutting around there, probably think he's pretty good because he.
And that gets to the point. Are these the people that we want to target
to smoke
and use our money on the drug war? I thought we were supposed to go after the big dealers and the big pushers. Oh no, we get the users and the little special needs people and get them busted. Thank God the judge said, you know what, extenuating circumstances, I can't let you go, so I'm only going to give you 20 hours of community service. You'll serve some informal probation, and it'll translate into a finding of not guilty.
Yeah. I think you're confusing the drug war with something that was actually intended to solve real problems. And not just be a control tactic like gun control and every other control we have.
And the issue is you don't see this happening in, let's say, exclusive wealthy private schools or in university campuses or at movie studios where we have wealthy people that can hire good attorneys and they complain and they can make life miserable for the people. No, they pick on, the poor, the mentally disabled, special needs, all these types of people because they can get away with it.
They're the only ones that do drugs,
They're
right?
the disenfranchised, exactly.
So, where else would you look for drugs?
Legalize drugs. It serves no purpose to ban something and spend so much money and ruin so many lives on a substance and on a program that isn't working. I'll get off my thing. Oh, speaking of government, real quick, we've got a few minutes. Obama, you hear about this, that their student loan program making $51 billion profit on student loans.
Look, the government has to be good at something.
The government's not supposed to make money.
And what the government is good at. Well, when you say they're making money,
are they making money on GM?
They're not actually making money because just subtract this little bit of from the spending that they're doing.
It's listen. They charge 7 to 8% interest on student loans. You can buy a house and a car. You can buy a car for 0%. You can buy a house for 4% interest.
Yes,
but a college education, student loans, 7-8% interest. They're making $51 billion, and you can't declare it on bankruptcy. You cannot erase school debts.
But isn't education...
They're there forever. They want their piece of flesh.
Isn't education worth it? I mean, really?
No, it's not because, as we
look at all of the big names that have made it only because of college education.
Oh,
Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Rush Limbaugh.
Nate.
Oh, wait, none of them finished college,
None of those guys finished college.
Darn. I give up.
On the other hand, there's a lot of philosophy PhD graduates that are working at McDonald's. And English,
and not making those student loans, so DHS will be at your house in a tank. So be careful. But they got those new cool ones, that they can. Not DHS, no, Department of Education.
Department of Education.
DHS might be there too because I think you could correlate defaulted student loans with terrorism. I think we could probably do that and tie the drug war in somehow.
If you have a working brain, you can be connected to terrorism, okay? In this government's eyes.
They figure
if you're a Republican. Which requires a working brain.
Department estimates they'll make about 80% on a dollar. That's pretty good investment.
No, that's really good
recovering on defaulted loans and stuff. Because, it's rigged. And I discussed this with you in private where we were talking about... here you got all the politicians that are encouraging everybody needs an education, college education. Everybody's got to go to college. You disagreed, but everybody. It's almost like you better borrow money and go into incredible debt so we can make $51 billion in profit. And they're brainwashing all these kids that you got to go to college. It's the only way you can make it. You're entitled to it. You have to go. Well, college isn't for everybody, and everybody's trying to go to college. It devalues college education. And a lot of kids, they can't hack it in college. And there's nothing wrong with being electricians and plumbers and welders, and
we need them.
We need those.
If everybody goes to college, what you will have is college-educated.
And if you hired a plumber lately at $100 an hour or whatever it is, you
can thank the unions for that. But
well, this guy was on his own. He didn't belong to a union.
I think what you're trying to make is that it's a conflict of interest for politicians.
Right, to encourage and create a need or a desire. I mean, it's capitalism, it's marketing, and it's.
Well, I would prefer the federal government to stick to marketing our welfare system in Mexico. I would prefer that they stick to that.
That's good because they're doing a good job.
It is effective, and I mean, what better place than Mexico to encourage people to come to the United States and sign up for welfare.
And speaking of capitalism, what do you think of this, Nate?
Is it capitalism?
I don't know.
If it's capitalism, I like it.
All right. Well, I don't know. Even if it dehumanizes people,
and
uses people.
I don't think it does. But
I don't think it does either.
Go ahead.
But anyways, a bus tour promises to take tourists through the real New York City ghetto.
And why wouldn't you want to go on that tour?
This is a company that for $45 and a 3-hour tour.
Oh, I've heard that before.
3-hour tour.
I'm still stuck on that damn island.
They'll take you on a ride through the Bronx ghetto and show off how bad things are in New York. And they give you images of the 70s and 80s and the drug wars and the games and the crimes, and it's mostly appealing to foreigners who want to come here and take pictures of people in bread lines and homeless people on the street and prostitutes on the corner, and even if they're not there. And the borough president is not very happy with this, and he wants to try to shut them down. But this guy's making $45 a rider through these areas. Is that right or wrong? Is that capitalism?
I don't know if it's right or wrong. Yes, it is capitalism.
Okay. Well, is it right or wrong?
I don't know. I think what
you're going to say what is right?
This
what is
could
wrong?
be what is right.
What is right? What is morality?
What could be useful from this is if we could grab people that think everything's all hunky dory and drive them through and show them, hey, this is what liberal ideology will get you. Then I think it could be useful.
I'm mad, man. You stole my line. I was going to say, Democrats don't want this to go on.
And that's who hates it.
Well, I'm sure this Bronx president is a liberal Democrat, although I'm not sure.
Yeah, you
Ruben
can't tell.
Diaz, so I'm assuming. I'm profiling, and profiling's wrong.
Yeah, no, I think this is fine. This brings up a question. There's an internet site. It's like a dating site, but it's for cheating spouses. And basically, if you want to cheat on your wife,
I'm familiar with it.
and I know you are. You can go on there and meet a woman, and it's the same argument. Is that ethical? Well, I mean, he's not forcing anybody to cheat on their spouse.
He's creating a service.
He's making money by helping people do what, in fact, in a lot of cases, saves marriages.
I don't know about that. I'm moving away from
sure.
that.
I mean, you could ask a marriage counselor and see that those sort of things happen. A lot of times, but it doesn't.
I don't know that it saves the marriage necessarily.
A lot of times it does. Well, I mean, we could get into it, but you have a sexually frustrated husband, and just needs a bit of a fix. And
I tell my wife, listen, you want to keep the big dog on the porch, you got to feed him once in a while.
Right, but if you can go eat at the neighbors and go
the
back
neighbor's
in your bed,
yeah. She's to the point now. Go. I don't want to deal with you.
I don't want to cook for you.
Yeah, that's all right. So
the point is, this is the argument that you get from the socialists: is that capitalism isn't compassionate, capitalism isn't moral, capitalism isn't ethical.
It's just a.
But in fact,
it's just a system.
Well, right, yeah.
It's like saying evolution. Is evolution moral?
No, not at all. Because
it's not fair. If it was fair, I'd be 6'2", 180 pounds.
That's not what I meant. But okay, I was thinking intellectually.
You're thinking like Cro-Mag? Cro-Magnon.
Yeah, that's
Not even that high?
that's what I was-
Australopithecus?
I don't know.
Africanus?
We're running out of time, though.
Adam Kokesh, the leader of the armed march on D.C., was arrested last week at a pot rally for assaulting a federal officer. What he did is he said a few words. They tried to grab the bullhorn from his mouth because he was telling people to light up their pot. And he didn't go peacefully, but he didn't really assault anybody. But since he was arrested on federal property, somehow it's a federal offense. Well,
Interesting.
I think he got released yesterday. At least that's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
that's what I heard.
And they dropped it down to other civil citations or infractions or something or else.
He is the guy who doesn't do this, but what he does, he wants to have the armed march in D.C. He wants to
Right.
get 10,000 fellow armed citizens and march on D.C. I think it's a bad idea, but it might get some awareness at least, which could be a good thing. But we really are running out of time
Yes,
now.
we are,
So I
we
want
are.
to thank you for listening. I want to
Good.
thank Kaylee for helping us out.
Thanks,
educate
Kaylee. We love you.
some of the children out there.
Thanks
that
for listening. Thanks
have
our
not seen
producer,
Eddie Eagle.
John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
You
don't
did a
get-
good job.
We don't get to thank you very much. Have a donut.
Yeah, have a cookie.
Yeah,
We brought cookies.
We did bring cookies. I want a cookie.
I want a cookie too. And thanks a lot. And until then, stay safe
Stay armed
and stay aware
and informed.
and informed. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Bye-bye.